Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. In this episode, I'm talking with writer Jeremy Haun for the comiXology Originals title 40 Seconds. We talk a lot about the origin of the story and his work with artist Chris Mitten, as well as some cool details that tie into his other works. We talk a lot about the changes that the comics industry has seen, and how indie creators now have a much better chance of bringing their work to a wider audience. I am chatting with writer and co-creator of the new 40 Seconds series, Jeremy Haun. This series is a 5-issue sci-fi series, which you can only find on comiXology Originals. You go to comiXologyoriginals.com for more info. Jeremy, welcome to the show. It is great talking to you.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I want to start by asking about working with Chris Mitten, who is the artist and fellow co-creator for the series. Why Chris was the person you want to work with on this, and how it was finally able to happen.
There's and this really goes pretty deep, but in the making of a full-length making of documentary about making the movie From Dusk Till Dawn. It's called Full Tilt Boogie. And on that, there's an audio commentary. So there's like a making of kind of thing. It gets really Inception-y in there. But Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino talk about working together and being friends. And when you tend to surround yourself with like-minded creators, people you enjoy their work, you like hanging out with. And Chris and I have known each other forever. And one of the things that they talked about in that commentary, I think it was Tarantino said it basically, was like, when you're a kid, you see your friends every day at school. And then you call your friends, and you constantly talk, right? Well, as adults, we don't really get that so much. So if you want to see your friends, you have to really figure out ways to work with your friends. And that was the reality of it. I wanted the chance to just hang out with Chris at shows and be around him. And we both started out as just artists, and my career shifted in a lot of ways and become a lot more of what I want out of my career, which is drawing some things, writing some things, writing and drawing some things. My mantra has really become only work with people that you like a lot, and only work with people that make, I don't know, not to get too Marie Kondo about it, but bring you joy. It has to be, like people that really truly make you happy. And Chris, he's one of the best people on earth. He's a fantastic artist and a wonderful collaborator. And I'm glad that we got to do this.
I think that that's a very good way of looking at it, because if you work with someone that you may not like too much, maybe you just don't know very well, it can make things kind of difficult. So I think it's definitely very good if you can work with someone that you're like pals with. So that's a good approach. You don't want to like dread it. You'll be like, okay, here we go, time to sit down for a few hours and work with this dude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really, I don't know. I can't imagine something like comics working with somebody you just don't get on well with. It's comics is so personal anyway. It's so much work. It's so much communication and openness back and forth. You really have to. I think that there's this presentation, like I joke and call it the artists be like this, writers be like this thing, where it's like writers feel underappreciated for what they do, artists feel underappreciated for what they do, not really realizing that like we're all technically underappreciated for what we do, and we all deserve more and better treatment and all these things. But I can't imagine somebody that like I was actively butting heads with, because this is a hard enough industry as it is. I just want to hang out and have a good time with my friends. And I think that you occasionally start working with new people that become friends, or at least you enjoy working with, and that's part of the process. So I definitely got lucky on this one.
Now, you dropped the first issue of this on August 25th, and at that time, of course, the pandemic well underway. Did that impact things in terms of working together or getting things done in time?
Chris and I are weird enough that it didn't affect much at all as far as the way we handle, our process. I will admit that I probably thought that I would have the series written a month or two, finished a month or two before I did. But it didn't affect things. It went from like being like incalculably ahead to being really, really ahead. Chris, so issue 2 just came out, what, a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Chris is inking, he may be halfway through inking the 5th issue, the final issue. So we are like, I talked about it online. It was like I was going through the postpartum depression of it. I finished writing this thing a month and a half ago, and I was like, oh wait, that was it's like my I have empty nester syndrome. My kid left the home, and now I'm sitting here wondering what I'm supposed to do. Luckily, I got beautiful artwork, in my inbox every week or so, and get to see what Brett's doing. What Chris is doing, and then what Brett Weldele, our colorist, is doing. That's part of the joy too of working with such a great team all around. I get to see what Chris Mitten is drawing, but then Brett Weldele, who is a full illustrator himself in his own right. I worked with Brett years ago on the second arc of The Beauty. He came in and drew some of that for us and did an amazing job. But Brett slummed it and was like, did me a favor, did just a real solid, and colored Chris's work on this, and it's just beautiful. He takes some risks with stuff. Like I can always tell when Brett's pulling something, kind of exciting, because he kind of obviously virtually, but then he kind of scoots the pages in and it's like, here we go. But it's like crazy magentas or something like that. And it's just stunning every single time. And then we're working with Thomas Maurer, who is the letterer on the project, letterer and designer. And I think that's actually a really interesting thing that like a lot of people don't know about. It's the dichotomy of a designer. You can be a good designer and come in and make a book look really, really fantastic and not necessarily understand lettering, and vice versa. You can be a great letterer and not be a great designer. And Thomas does both. He really brings this thing to life. And, it's just basically it's 3 camps, the line art, the color art, and the lettering design. And he just comes in and like crushes it every single, they all do. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I love the art in this series. It is absolutely amazing stuff. The design of the alien worlds, the colors used, all of it is so really just, it's just like so like eye-popping, like you turn the page, digitally speaking, you get to the new ones like, oh, this is really awesome too, and like boom, boom, right. Boom. How long did it take to kind of world build this thing when it came to saying, okay, this is what everything's going to look like?
Again, this is the benefit of having such a wonderful creative team, creative partners, that like I walked into this basically saying, this is the story that I want to tell. These are all the twists and the turns. These are the big strokes, right? And then I said, now let's fill in the rest together. So, I knew that there are basically 7 worlds, 7 jumps. I wanted all of those worlds to feel different, interesting, new, fun, beautiful, scary. But I kind of said, this is kind of what we need here. Chris, what do you want to draw? And like one of my favorite things was Chris was like, I want to draw things like a world where like there's almost like sea life floating around in the sky, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I got that. And it's just little things like that. I think that one of the amazing things about having this team is that they truly look at every bit of it as like, this is a chance to shine. This is a chance to draw exactly what they want to, even down to stuff like Thomas on the lettering really brought some like little different things to it. He kept thinking about it and he's like, hey, I've been wanting to try this. I think this is the book for it. And then creates something that it feels so cohesive. And, I keep saying that like, it's our big budget blockbuster summer sci-fi project, and we want it to feel like that.
I could definitely see this being made as a movie. It's really got that, like the setting and the story it definitely has all those feelings of this like big, like you said, summer science fiction blockbuster story. So speaking of which, let's dive into the story. So this series focuses on a distress call being received from a planet 4 million light years, I believe, away.
Right.
Along with detailed plans on how to build basically this like jump gate that allows people to cross huge distances in the blink of an eye, or in 40 seconds.
Right.
And it's not just a one-shot deal, though. It is like multiple stops kind of along the way. And we've already had one team go out there and they vanished, which I'm sure is great news.
Yeah.
So along with trying to find out exactly who sent the message, the new team has to find what happened to the last one. And one detail I caught that I loved is that the first team apparently went by their names. Second team goes by numbers.
Right.
I'm curious as to why that was.
It's gonna be revealed very, very soon.
Okay.
There is something there. I like the idea that I can seed things in like that and really play with them. And like one of the things that I love about this kind of story is, on its face, it's a big popcorn action flick, right? Like it's I mean, Armageddon. I don't know. It's not Armageddon, but it's like that big epic crazy. There's limitless budget. You can go anywhere and create all these worlds. Can't believe I just dropped Armageddon out there. That's the worst. That was a terrible choice. Forgive me, movie gods. But it's big and it's fun. But then I wanted to layer in a real mystery. I wanted to layer in some really kind of, as somebody that's done a lot of horror writing by this point, you can kind of see that through line in everything that I do a little bit. My image book, The Beauty, that I created with Jason Hurley, is kind of body horror. It's a crime slight horror story. It's this kind of terrifying thing. In the realm that I did for Image with Seth Peck, it's a post-apocalyptic high fantasy book, but there's these creepy things that we kept seeding in there. The Red Mother, my Boom Studios book, is just straight horror. I can't get away from telling spooky things, and I kind of love that. Growing up, one of the joys is whatever age you are, I was that perfect age where I was just too young to even have seen it, so it was even more terrifying, was Alien. When you're exposed to Alien, regardless of when it is. Now I'm assuming some people see them out of order, and so the surprise gets ruined a little bit. But that first chestburster scene in the first movie wrecks you. And if say that you were like 4, like I was when I walked in and saw that scene, it's incredibly upsetting. But taking something like the science fiction in Alien and then mixing in that horror aspect, or even Aliens, which goes even more sci-fi and bigger and kind of fun, still has those moments. And I love playing with that. That's my favorite thing to do.
If I had to pick an order for Aliens, for me personally, it goes 2, 1, 4, and we just skip the third one entirely.
I think it's hilarious because I think that there's things about each one. I think that you can take the first 2 and you can say to me, my order is 2, 1, or you can say 1, 2, and I'm going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like it's like it. I'm also just not movie snobby enough to ever be like, oh, I'm going to trash your way of thinking on most things, except apparently Armageddon, which I both love and apologize for.
Yeah, that's okay.
But either way you watch those two, the 3 and 4 really get very tricky, and people either kind of like them, absolutely hate them, have a weird nostalgia for them. For me, I really liked some elements of 3. I wish it was maybe a different, the other versions that you hear about and you say, there's one where it takes place on a wooden planet out in the middle of space and all sorts of, there was some crazy stuff. Three is bonkers. But people went in the directions they did, and so we have to live with that until we change it or whatever. But four for me is actually one of the things I love is that Jean-Pierre Jeunet, the guy that directed City of Lost Children and Amelie, directed Alien 3. So it's this French filmmaker. And even if you've seen City of Lost Children, like Ron Perlman's in City of Lost Children, he pulls in a ton of the cast from that movie. So it's a Joss Whedon script, and it's cartoony. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, sorry, we just went off on an Alien tangent in the middle of this, but I don't know. I love Alien. It's probably my favorite franchise. I'm very excited to not get called by Marvel to work on it.
An Alien tangent is always a good use of time.
Right.
Yeah. But let's steer things back to 40 seconds. You mentioned dropping the seeds for the story, and I've just recently finished issue 2, and I'm seeing those seeds, and I'm thinking, man, this can be such a reveal at some point, and I'm sure it's going to blow a lot of minds. When it came to writing the story, did you have to go back and do things over again? Like, was there a lot of back and forth before you finally had a script that you said, okay, we're set?
I am ridiculous in the way that I write. I think on things for years sometimes. Like 40 seconds, the concept and the base of the story started nearly 10 years ago. I mean, it's been gestating there for a long time. And so, you always just sit there and kind of let it tumble, let it kind of proof, if you're using baking terms, I guess. I really, I started to think about what I wanted and how I wanted it and how the pieces fit together. And then by the time that Chris came on, I had a really pretty tight outline. And then I built an even tighter outline, and then I just wrote. And and it's like by the time that I'm writing, I tend to do 2 drafts by the time that I write. I'll do a first pass and then kind of just a fix this weirdness pass. I think it's funny because on its surface it seems like something I do pretty quickly. A lot of friends around me always joke that stories are so fully formed when I come up with them. But I don't really say I've been kind of thinking on this for about a year, so it builds.
Is what you have now really different from what you had 10 years ago?
Not that different. Some of the connections, I think, really sharpened. Because I think that any story this big is going to have a lot of problems. Why does this work this way? Why does this work this way? How does this fit? And I know most of them. I love. There's always little things that we could have gone harder into the science with this. I love and respect hard science fiction writers, people that really dive incredibly deep in it. I appreciate that so much. I was always the kid though that was when people are okay, Star Trek or Star Wars, I'm both. Give me both. They're both awesome. I want to watch Empire Strikes Back for the 8,000th time, and then go click on Next Generation and marathon that. I love them both, and I love that you can have both. And I understand, again, kind of similar to any of these anytime we hit on preference, I understand why you might prefer one thing over the other, and that's fine. But I don't know, I want my cake, and I want to eat it.
I think I get you driving that. You like the different things for the different reasons, and like you said, the hard science writers are going to, of course, explain everything. But this is a science fiction fantasy world. You don't have to give an answer for every little thing.
Well, yeah, and I think that for me, it's more enjoyable filling in blanks sometimes. I'm going to give you by the time that this is over, I'm going to answer 87% of the questions, and I can't guarantee you that there's not going to be another series at some point. I have ideas. I have ways that this could go, ways that things could connect. So I want to always leave a little bit, like, hey, give me, but I don't want to ever do that at the cost of like readers feeling cheated. I want you to understand why they're numbered. I want you to understand why things work the way that they do, and how that certain things that really might feel off in the beginning probably are that way for a reason. For me, I don't know that I have a truly hard sci-fi story in me. I say that, and now watch this. Next year, I'll be like, I've got a hard sci-fi story in me. I don't know.
You had to say it. One of the things I'm really curious about is one of of course, the big antagonists of this series is this huge, endless horde that shows up whenever they activate the gate. I am sure, obviously, no spoilers. People go read the series. I imagine that there's a story behind that too. They're not just there to be a conflict or an obstacle for the team to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a reason for them, and I mean that's even so much of the bigger reveal about what this is and how it works. And I love stories that have like a mechanism in the beginning. It's like, this is a story about people jumping across the universe to try to get to another world, and then there's what the series is about, which is about the relationships and about the people doing this and about the things they find along the way and the reality and truth, that they end up facing. I like telling layered stories, and it's so much more fun. But the Horde it's like, we're going to get to it and we're going to reveal what it is. But for the moment, for what you're seeing in the beginning of the story, it's such a wonderful device because it puts a clock on things, right? It says, literally, you got 40 seconds from the time you activate this thing, and then it builds, and then you jump through, and the gates open for 40 seconds, and you are so vulnerable during that period of time. And these things know that you're vulnerable. They're laying in wait. They are going to get you, and they've probably had time to think about how they're going to do this. And again, there's bigger reasons, but I love that threat and that thing where it's like, we can get to somewhere, we can be safe for a little while, but we eventually have to get to the gate, and we have to activate the gate, and things are going to be chaos. And and there's just no way around that. I enjoy that.
Now, you have worked for a ton of titles. I cannot list them all because we'll be here all day. You mentioned Red Mother, Constantine, Batwoman, many, many more. What was new for you with 40 Seconds?
40 Seconds was much less grounded for me than my usual fare. I tend to joke that I'm kind of a street level guy in a lot of ways, especially in my art. I did a lot of Batman family stuff. I did Red Hood and Batwoman and a little bit of like Arkham Reborn and Detective and stuff like that. But I love that. I love mysteries. I love crime. I love horror. And so I think that even when I started out, a lot of what I was doing was very big and bold, but it was still street level. And for me, I wanted to do something that was just science fiction. It was just beautiful and fun and kind of it didn't have to be just the standard, people wearing suits punching each other or something like that. Although there is some people in suits punching each other in this. So
I was going to say there's a bit of punching going on, I thought.
Yeah.
we can't escape the suit punching.
Right, exactly.
Do you have a favorite title that you've worked with?
The non-answer is, when you start out, you do creator-owned work, and then you fight like hell to feed your family, so you take on opportunity to draw the icons of your youth. You go and you work on something for Marvel or something for DC, and those were amazing opportunities. I love drawing Iron Man. I love drawing Batman. I love drawing, there's very little that I've been like, big two stuff that I've been like, oh, this isn't the best feeling on earth. I love all of it, and I'm honored to get to have done it in my career. But I think there's a turn where you really go from working on other people's stories to wanting to work on your own again. And it's very, very important to me, the realization that I could feasibly work on some kind of mainstream property for the rest of my life. But like, I could do this, or I could create my own stories, really tell the stories that are in the back of my head. That was important for me. So, I was honored, honestly, like kid me, the version of myself that was, like that sees the magic of this industry, couldn't believe the time that I had a Detective Comics with my name on it. That melted my brain. But getting to do my creator-owned work, and I don't know how to choose that because they're all my kids. I love them all. I love each of these stories and what they bring. I love tying them together. I think that there's a certain magic there to like really, the way that once you're done reading 40 Seconds, if you've read The Red Mother, you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, there's a little bit of something in there. Okay. There's definitely a connection to all of these stories in a way, and I love that.
Was that planned, or did it just kind of happen?
A little bit of both. I started working on a project with 3 other friends, B. Claymore, Alex Grecian, and Seth Peck. It was called Bad Karma. It was a project that we did as a Kickstarter. So Bad Karma was a studio. It was just the 4 of us working on stuff. We did you'd kind of call it, an anthology, but basically it was like a 200-plus page hardcover graphic novel with stories written by all 4 of us. I drew some stuff for it. We had Phil Hester, Andrew McLean, Chris Mitten was in it. Tons and tons of amazing collaborators came in and worked with us on this thing. All of us writing it, but then other people drawing. In that, we kind of laid down some groundwork for a way to have our stories in that project connect. And then I was like, well, I have elements of a mythos that I started building into those stories in that. And I was like, oh, well, over here, if we have this story, I can put this little seed of this nefarious corporation that seems to bounce around through different times and realities. And over here, I can do, this thing. And it really became most obvious to me whenever I was working on The Red Mother and 40 Seconds at the same time. And I was like, oh, I can kind of fit this in there and that in there. I'm also currently working on a project. It's just a personal thing that I'm doing. It's a Patreon exclusive thing that I'm basically doing right now. And it's called Haunthology, and which it's a good name, right? Yeah. So
it's a great name. It flows so well.
Yeah. I love having my name the way, but you throw a T on the end of Haun and you get haunt. And what actually really messed me up was when I accidentally was with friends and we coined the phrase Hauniverse, because that one also flows really well. It's so self-important and so stupid. So I mean I don't want to seem like I actually am that self impressed, but it's a lot of fun. And so the Haunthology stuff is basically when COVID happened, it changed everything for all of us. I mean, there's no denying the idea that our world is much different. And for a little while, when we were all definitely, I don't know how stringent it was where you are, but like we were on quarantine, on lockdown, for 40 days, something like that. Like it was pretty extreme. And during that, we hung out, we played a lot of board games. Me and my family, we watched a lot of movies. But a lot of projects went pencils down during that, because, and reasonably, the world doesn't know what's going on. Diamond, the comics distributor, hit the pause button for a little while. Shops weren't getting new comics. Some shops couldn't even be open. It was very, very hard on everyone. I found that I still needed to make content. I still needed to tell stories during this. I was very fortunate that The Red Mother and 40 Seconds both continued. I was able to write both of those, and we were able to keep our artists going on them. But a lot of the stuff I was drawing, we had to hit the pause button on. So I was like, I'm going to tell these black and white short stories, almost all horror things, 1 to 15 page short stories about whatever I want. And then I started realizing that I could take all of the little bits of fabric that connect the beauty to the realm, to 40 Seconds, to The Red Mother. I could take all of those little bits and hit on little things in these short stories, and it really became magic for me. There's characters that you're going to see or even hear about in these other stories that appear in the short stories. And I don't know, I'm just having a blast doing it. It's something that I think, while it's a Patreon exclusive project that I do bi-weekly right now, probably in about 6-9 months, I'm probably going to figure out some way to do a real physical release, because I've released now about 50 pages of short stories on this, and I've written over 100 pages at this point. And so I'm just going to keep compiling stuff. And once I get there, I'm just going to, gonna have fun with it.
I want to get a little like inside industry for a moment. You've talked about Patreon. Of course, a lot of folks are utilizing Kickstarter, and comiXology is giving a lot of people the chance to get comics, which before they might not be able to get published, out there for the whole world to see. Has the industry changed to the point where it is now possible to make a career doing like your own thing? You don't have to wait for like the big two to kind of pick you up or some other industry to have a job opening?
I truly believe so. Yeah. I think that, one of the things that I am incredibly impressed with the new group of creatives coming into comics. I turned 45 a couple weeks ago, so I get to say words like kids, these kids. But you're seeing these people come in, and they are such a wonderful variety of individuals on every level that have this work ethic where like they know how to hustle like nobody's business. Like all of these people coming in, they understand the side hustle within the side hustle thing. So they're like, hey, I'm going to release a webcomic, and then I'm going to collect that webcomic for after 2 years, and I'm going to do this. Oh, and by the way, I have this, I'm doing these enamel lapel pins, and I'm doing these stickers, and you can also do this thing. And I'm also writing this project over. Like, they get that it's a brand, and you just have to build it and recycle content. And I think that we tend to often look at things and say, this is how I consume a product. That's the only way it should be, right? Like I am an old school, week to week, visit the comic shop, pick up my floppies, maybe buy the trade of it later, but put them in bags and boards and put them in my thing. Like, I'm that kind of reader because that's how I like to consume things. You may not be. This person over here may only read comics digitally. This person may wait just strictly for trades. There are all kinds of readers out there. And I think that what you have to really do is, as creatives and companies, it's important for us to understand that people have different reading habits, and we have to provide content for them. And, like I said, these kids, they sure as hell know how to do it.
That actually reminds me of an artist I met at an area Comic-Con. I believe the name she goes by these days is Wishkoi. It was Wish Pedal some time back, or I could be reversing it. Anywho, and she has just built this amazing fan base. Her posts will on Instagram get like a couple thousand likes. If she does like a live stream drawing session, she'll have like a couple thousand viewers. So a very good example of the hustle and making it work.
Yeah. Well, and like, I always want to be cautious and make people understand that, like, I'm not disparaging traditional comics or the traditional comics model, but like, there's no way you can't look at something like the massive, millions of copies of Guts that were released out there. It's Scholastic books or very, other publishing companies, or even some weird digital publications that are reaching numbers that we can't even begin to comprehend. That's amazing. And I just love that you can have all the things. There are titles out there that I look at and I'm like, oh, this This isn't particularly something that like I absolutely love, but I love that it exists, and I want it to exist because we need comics for everyone. And the biggest gift that we can give ourselves as an industry to help us get better and stronger is to continue to support the idea that read how you want to read what you want to read, we'll make more.
Mm-hmm. And I love the diversity of that content. Like, no two stories are even remotely alike. You're seeing such unique, creative things being produced. Like, a couple of titles I recently read, both on comiXology. One is called Virtually Yours. It all centers on a dating app that fakes being in a relationship. But there's so much depth with the characters and the story arcs. It's an amazing stuff. And then Crema, which is about a young woman who overdoses on caffeine and sees ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
I love that we're getting to see all these great ideas come to life in all these new ways, and that the indie folks are getting a chance to shine.
I really think that comiXology Originals has done something special with that. They've given us a chance to tell a variety of, because some of these are incredibly personal. You know, something like 40 Seconds is big and sci-fi-y. You know, it's like all these things out there. There are ways, you know, that you're doing it, and you know, whether it's Mark Sable or Johnny Christmas. I mean, like there's all sorts of creators that, and forgive me for blanking on everybody else I was going to mention, but you know, but like there's so many voices out there, and comiXology is giving us the chance to do that right now. And I understand that people want physical copies of stuff. I do too, and that's part of the reason I know that they've got some stuff in the works right now for physical copies of these things to actually be coming out. We need more content, and you know, I remember always being fascinated going to like flea markets as a kid, and you'd find like Westerns and romance comics and weird war comics and stuff like, and superhero comics and all these things. But like, I want more of that. You know, I want, yes, I have, you know, a lot of my stuff's horror. Yes, I have some sci-fi stuff. Yes, I have a lot of crime stuff. But like, I have my areas that I like to create in, but I like to read in all sorts of areas. And it's just, you know, if the book looks good and it's got a hook, I'm going to read it. And that's the best kind of thing right now.
How did you get connected with comiXology?
It's such a small industry. I mean, that's the reality of it is that I sort of tangentially knew the comiXology crew from other parts of comics, and then they came into this. I started having conversations with them and Chip over at comiXology, Chip Mosier. Like, he just got what I was wanting to do. And I mean, one of the best things there, and I think that this has been the through line for everybody that I've talked to, all the creators that are doing projects, he asks a very, very simple question. What is the book that you really need to do right now? What is the book that you're just dying to do? If you have that answer and it's the right, you know, if it fits, you know, the mold, then you're in. And they allow you to do things the way you want to do them. I mean, you know, I'm telling this story. They're just making it. You know, comiXology's allowing it to happen in the best kind of way, under the best circumstances. It's my story. It's not comiXology's fault if at the end I suddenly just have, you know, 4 pages of like an explosion and then, you know, just blankness in space or something like that. You know, that's on me. You can yell at me. You don't need to yell at poor Chip or comiXology for my mistakes.
That would be a great twist ending. That would be a great twist ending. If you just had, boom, blank page, the end.
I feel like you get to do that once, and then nobody ever reads anything that you do ever again.
Yeah, it is definitely a card you do not play often. You really get to do that one time only. Well, Jeremy, it has been really fun talking to you. Of course, I am very much looking forward to the conclusion of 40 Seconds. So, folks, if you don't do it already, go to comiXology.com. Sign up. It's $6 a month. You get access to thousands upon thousands of titles, including many great comiXology originals. Before we go, though, where can folks go to learn more about you?
Probably the best places if you want to follow me. You can check me out on Instagram. That's kind of my favorite go-to place. I'm on Instagram and Twitter under Jer Haun, Jerhaun. You can also find me on Facebook. I have a standard page and a fan. I hate the term fan page, but I have both two pages. Just depends on those how much how many pictures of my cat or my food that you want to get involved in. Like I said, Instagram is probably my favorite just because of the purity of it's just images and a couple of thoughts on things. I've been doing for October. I did like a 31 days of Halloween, so I've gone through and I've drawn a horror movie character nearly every day for the month, and so it's just fun. I just put stuff up there and entertain myself.
Excellent. Well, Jeremy, thank you once again. I'm loving the series, and hopefully we'll talk for the next one.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, man.
Hey, what's up? This your girl Molly McCoy, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout, your home for the best in music, movies, and a whole lot more.
Picture this. You finished your first book and nailed it. The plot, the characters, all the twists and turns. This one's a winner, and all you need is the right cover. If you've got my art skills, this is the part where panic usually sets in. Enter the cover villain, hero to writers everywhere. Founded by noted author Remy Flagg, Cover Villain focuses on composite image covers for science fiction and fantasy writers. Give them the details, and they'll craft a cover using popular trends that everyone will want to see. But wait, you say, I've got ideas of my own. No problem, as Cover Villain loves a good collaboration. As they say, our goal is to put a little villain in every cover we make. Want to know more? Then head to covervillain.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, folks, that brings this episode to a close. You can follow the show on Facebook under Citywide Blackout and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. Listen to the show on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Amazon Music, and every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. As always, keep those ears open.